And you're recording. Good, good. All right, let's see. Of course, this is written on. This is written. Well, okay. Uh, this is a template which I have made for specifically for this course, and you can even use it in the other courses as well, because normally in the department we follow, and we start in this course and then the other guys follow what I'm doing here, so it will kind of ease your matter and report writing. I put for you this actually in the just to show you where I am putting it in the files here in class materials. You go there and then you go to the lab results, you go here and you will find it here, Akamoji. So you have it here. So we go back to the posts, okay, so that it is clear that where we have it there. So this is a kind of general guidelines and directions which I give you in this template basically. I try to be very concise, يعني مختصر وايد على أساس إنه يكون مختصر ومفيد يعني very concise. So what is this report writing basically? It's the ability to communicate both يعني clearly, both orally and in writing for a great, which is of great importance actually for professional engineers. You need to be able to communicate. If you don't know report writing or you don't know how to do seminars or to present yourself, you have a problem. We don't want that, and that's why we have report writing here course as an English course. We have also urging you to do good report writing in different courses as well in order to enhance this skill. And we have the seminar course as well and the senior project where you have a chance to learn about presentations as well. So after you graduate, you will spend much of your time actually doing this, the presentation, both orally and in written form to your supervisors, to your managers. So it is very important. So let us look at some rule of thumbs basically at the beginning. About report writing. Here we are not doing it orally, we are doing only written. So basically report writing, let's look at that part. It's unlike newspaper articles. We are talking about technical report writing here. So it's not like newspaper writing articles. Report writing has certain standards to be followed. In addition, the style of the technical report writing and scientific writing is different than the ones which are used in writing books or writing literature, so or writing in newspapers as well. So that is different. You need to understand that they are different. Second point, what I'm raising here, colloquial or slang languages should never be used in scientific or technical report writing. And also, yani, you don't say, for example, the topping cream in this point is that you don't need to do that. You just use simple and grammatically correct language only. So your language should be very direct, very simple, and correct grammatically, and of course spelling and all that. You don't use difficult language. You don't in literature, for example, we are not trying to read Shakespeare يعني, story or literature. Here, things have to be very simply written, directly written in a concise way. You don't have to talk about a lot of things there. For example, this is what I'm saying, the next point. Your points, you should go directly to the point without unnecessary elaborations and wordy text. You don't have to fill it in text. You go direct. You use direct wording. You don't use direct descriptions there. The last point which we want to say also, It is also well established that in scientific writing, it's done in it's done in third person. Third person, that is that we avoid the I and we. So it's not you did and you will do. It's not I did or we are doing. So you always use the third person. For example, in technical report writing, let's say in soil testing, the specimens were taken to the machine and they were put between the grips and the grips were pulled by the machine. So that's any third person, that's number one. And also it is in the past tense. So this is what we normally use as a standard in technical report writing. The report should consist of the following components. So we will go now through the details of this, of how this is done. 1 minute. Sorry for this, I have to do something. Urgent reply. So now we will go through the details of the report. We want to see in a technical report writing what will be the details. I'll go through the things one by one. To start with, we have the title page, the cover page. The title page should indicate different things. So it's mentioned here, the details. But let's go to the example which we have here for the title page which I'm giving you. Okay. So the title page will have the logo of the university here, University of Bahrain, College of Engineering, department, which department we are talking about. Then you will have the title of the report that you want to do. For example, this could be tensile test report, مثلا. And then at the department of, so you write the department number, name, by student name, student ID. Of course, you are doing it in a groups, so the student, this should be a kind of a table here with the student's number, with student name and student ID number, and then you will have the course code, and then submitted to write the name of the academic supervisor or teacher who you are submitting, and then here semester number and the year number here. So this is the template I wanted you to use, and we will come. So this is the template for the cover page. We'll come for the text and the fonts in a minute. The first thing, you will be starting with the title page, as you have seen that the template is given. The second thing, the second page will be the table of contents. You should always have a table of contents, which should include all the sections of the report and their corresponding page number. So, of course, normally the table of contents is written at the end. You leave a gap for it. You write table of contents, but then the details of the table of contents will be written at the end. After you finish your report, you know the page numbers. After the formatting, after your corrections and everything, you will know the page numbers. So you will put the title, the subtitle, the titles and the subtitles with the corresponding page numbers as well. All the headings and subtitles should be included here. Not much of text there, only headings and subheadings, and titles and subtitles. And the third page will be list of figures and list of tables. So you will be putting the list of figures, start with the list of figures, yeah, and then end up with the, and then the second thing will be the list of tables, as you could see here. They are directly put after the table of contents. And these should include this formatting. يعني مثلا you write up there list of figures. So you will say figure number, title of figures, you put the title there, and then the page number below. As we are saying, figure number 1, housing categories used by Ministry of Housing, and then which page does it appear at, and so on. So number 2 will be figure number 2, again the title of the page, and this basically goes below the page, which is the caption. It's part of the caption and the figure that you are presenting there. Okay, that is the list of figures, and after finishing list of figures, so the list of figures has to have a title here. You write list of figures, and then when you finish list of figures, separately you write list of tables. So you put the same formatting which you have here, and this is in the list of figures and list of tables. Yeah. Then after that, we want to talk a little bit about the lab report formatting. The length, well, in your report there, which I want you to do, it should not be more than, I'm saying here 10, I don't want 10 here, I want maximum 6 pages, excluding the cover page, table of contents, and list of figures and list of tables. Not more than 6 pages in your report. Okay? Page formatting, the report should be typed using word processor, so you will do it on A4 Word, and you will be using Times New Roman, and the text size should be 12, and it should be, يعني the line spacing should be 1.5, يعني at least, or if you can go 2, it's up to you. But normally we do it at 1.5. Page numbering should be also done, like the page numbers should be shown there. You start with the Latin numbers, like these numbers are called Latin numbers, and for these pages you will start with, like for example the cover page, that is optional. If you want to put on the cover page number or not, if you choose, then use the Latin one, so Latin numbers. You will choose, you will say page number on the cover page, Latin, and then on the table of contents, and then on the list of figures and list of tables. These will be numbered using Latin numbers here. But then after that, pages starting from the introduction, which will come after the cover page, table of contents, and list of figures and tables, we will be starting with the introduction. From the introduction onwards, you will be using the Arabic numbers, and like this, these are Arabic numbers, number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on and so forth. So this is how I want you to do the page numbering. Binding, of course, I don't want. You will be submitting anyways. This is when we are doing hard copies. Now we are doing soft copies, so you will not be concerned with binding anyways here. Then on the first page, of course, you will not start with the introduction directly. You will start with the objective of the experiment. So you will briefly state the purpose and the goal of the experiment that or the report that you are doing here. What is the goal? What is the you need to have a bird's eye on the general goal that you are going to do. For example, in your case, مثلا, you are interested to do what? I gave you the steel 0.1, 0.4, and 0.8% carbon steel. One of the goals is to determine the effect of the carbon content on the mechanical behavior of the steel. And the second goal could be the comparison between the ferrous and non-ferrous mechanical properties. These are clear goals, fairly short. It should be, this objective should be not 2 or maximum 3 sentences, which are fairly short paragraphs, or all together should be a fairly short paragraph 2, 3 sentences, maximum 4, something like that, to be clear. Actually, the reader should, from the objective, know whether he wants to continue reading your report or not. This should be your aim, actually, in the objectives. Then after that, yes.
يعني abstract هاي.
أنا ما بسميه abstract, we call it objective. Objective بيكون وايد أوضح in terms of meaning. So in scientific report writing, it could be in a journal, you will say it's abstract, but here we call it objective. Okay? You write the word objective. Some people also use summary, but we are standardizing, so we want to see, we are standardizing it الحين ده. We want to see in the different courses that you use objective. Introduction comes next. So on this part, what you will be actually doing in the introduction, you will answer the following questions basically. What are you intending to determine? Why is it important to determine that? What are the things that you are going to determine here? From your objective, of course, it is clear that you are going to expand that in the introduction. You're intending to determine the effect of the carbon content on the mechanical behavior of the steel. What kind of mechanical behavior you are going to look at? For example, yield strength, ultimate strength, stiffness, ductility, in terms of what? Percent elongation, percent reduction in area, the toughness of the material, and so on and so forth. And you will be presenting that these are the properties that I am going to look at, how these properties are determined, what are the calculations I'll be doing, formulas for such, if I am going to use, and why is it important to look at this aspect, which is effect of carbon content on the mechanical behavior of material. Another aspect which will be the comparison between the ferrous and non-ferrous. Well, this is also something that you will be doing, and you need to elaborate a little bit. Elaboration here is required on the objective that you are putting. You see, you have to have a clear link between the objective and the introduction. Of course, with the other things as well, but we are talking about now these two things. You cannot talk about objective as being one thing, and then in the introduction, we will be talking about some other thing. This lays the platform. In the introduction, you're laying the platform. تفرش السجاد حق الاشياء اللي بتسويها next. You're laying the platform for what you will be showing in the next in the remaining of the report. So I am saying here, you need to give a short background about anything you will be determining, you will be looking at. So a short background, like the way you are going to calculate it, the calculations that will be required, not detailed calculations, but the formulas, for example, equations that you will be using, and so on and so forth, you will be shown here. Then, after doing that, you will be listing the materials tested and the equipment used. A brief and short. It could be. Yani this has to have a subtitle. And this is a title, which we are looking at: materials tested and equipment used. Below that, you could say material tested, and you could use, for example, you could say the material used in this investigation are the ones which are shown in the table below. So you need to put a table there, and of course, once you start with the table, then you will say the table has a caption. How can I draw? This is not right. Way to draw is to open PowerPoint. Can we open PowerPoint? Open that. Open PowerPoint. One off. I forgot to bring my pen with me. It would have been much easier than using the mouse. So when you are now pen. For example, you could have a table. If I had my pen, it would have been much better. So you could have a table like that, and in the table there, you will be showing, for example, material is used, material use, and then you can call it also, for example, designation. I will not continue that, it is like using a mouse. So you can put the materials there for yourself. For example, you will say 0.1% carbon steel, and you will put there AISI 1010, and the next one, and the next one, and the rest as well. And below there, you need to show caption. You will say table 1, and then like that, and you write the caption here. This caption is a brief description of what you are showing here. For example, in this case, I would say material used, the material which are used in this investigation, and the material details will be given here, 1, 2, 3, right? So this is what you basically are going to do. And this caption, we call it caption. And of course, you see caption, the table number, now it is number 1. So that you will be showing in table number 1. You will use this caption. I'll say. Okay, you'll use that caption to show here in the list of figures and list of tables. Remember, we had list of figures and list of tables. Below list of figures, there is list of tables. In the list of tables, you will say in the same formatting here, say 1, and that is the caption that you will be given. The same description which you had there, here, which you are writing, you will be putting here. And then you will be putting the page number as well. So this is what I wanted to say here about materials tested. And also you should have in this part the equipment that you will be using, or the apparatus that you will be using here, and a small description describing each equipment as well. Experimental procedure, well, this is an important part also, that in the experimental procedure you will say what experiments were performed, tensile testing. So how this tensile testing was described. Just describe the procedure in your own words, which you have seen already. We have seen it on videos, of course, not in the lab. So you will explain what to do in the steps there. Then the most important parts, which are the discussion, which are the experimental results, and the discussion will be set the next. And after that will come the conclusion. Now these two parts are the cream actually of the report that you need to use here. In the experimental results, in this part, the raw data taken from the course of the experiment is presented here. So if you have a test that you have done, or tests that have been done, in this case tensile testing, you will present each material results separately, and then you will just present the data that you're having it both in terms of figures, both in terms of figures, يعني شنو terms of figures, يعني figure numbers, يعني you will draw them as, for example, you will draw them as a stress-strain diagrams, for example. So you will show the stress-strain diagrams for this is a stress, this is a strain, and that is how you will put it there. You will say figure, for example, 1 to start with, and put that. Then here you will be writing. I cannot type. My typing will be faster than writing in mouse. So I would say the stress-strain diagram for the 0.1% carbon steel, for example. This is my first figure. The second figure will be the same thing. I'll put figure 2. I'll put the stress-strain diagram for the 0.2, for the 0.4% carbon steel, and the same thing for the figure 3, and so on and so forth. And again, this is the figure number, this is the caption. This is also called the caption, which both go where? In the list of figures that we said there. So in the third page, basically, in your report. Title page, table of contents, list of figures and tables. You will put that there. These are the figures that you will be having there. So this so that is what you are going to present in the results area. You need to talk about your result in your own words and use tables and figures to clearly show what you say. So when it comes to presenting the figures, you have to present them. يعني, let me say this. يعني let me say this. This is important because you need to understand that. يعني, the insert the slide. Insert وين I'm use slide. Okay, let's go here. Okay, let me go here again. When you're writing your report, the first page will be your title page. I don't have the page, so that's the title page. Okay, the title page, and then the second page will be table of contents. There, table of contents. Anyways, the third page will be list of figures and list of tables, and then in the introduction there you write the objective, and then you write the introduction, and then after the introduction what you will do, you will be presenting your results. So in the let's say we are at the results part here, the results. So some students, what they do, they just go in the results and then directly at the result they put the figure number 1, figure number 2, and they go maybe to the next page بعد يلا, and they put the figure number 3. ما عليه حتى الفيجر كاتب تحته, it's written there figure number and caption, everything. And then they put table number 1 if they have, and table number 2 if they have. We would need tables there as well. Well, this is not an appropriate way to show your results in a technical report writing, because at the beginning you need, before you put the figures there, you need to write something here. You need to represent what you are going to do. You have to have a flow in your technical report writing, a flow of discussions, a flow of wording, and a flow of the figures and tables that you want to show. So at the beginning here, before you show any figure, you will say the result. For example, the results from the tensile test which have been performed in this work are discussed in this part of the report. The stress strain diagram for the different figures will be shown below مثلا. To start with, the stress strain diagram for مثلا 0.1% carbon steel is drawn and shown and depicted as shown in figure 1. And now you will give me figure 1 here and put figure 1 here for me. Put figure 1 like that. This is figure 1, and with the caption. Then you'll say the stress strain diagram for the, again here, you don't leave it open. You need to have a smooth flow of writing and showing results as well. And then, so you will say the stress strain diagram for the 0.4% carbon steel, and then you talk again and show the third one and show the fourth and show the fifth. After you do that, then you can say also here afterwards, because you need to show results tabulated as well. You will say, for example, the mechanical properties of the different materials which have been shown in the figures above are summarized as and tabulated as shown in table 1. In this table, for example, what you need to do, for example, you will summarize the properties. You will be doing calculations, and the calculations you could show afterwards, for example. So you will make a table here. will say that is the material, for example, material which you will be using, material left, right, the materials, and then you will show the different properties here. The different properties will be what? So this is your first material, second material, third material, 4, 5, which we basically have 5 here. You will show, for example, the stiffness, the value of E with the units. Of course, you put between brackets the units, the sigma Y, the yield strength of the material, the tensile strength of the material. They say that it's UTS. Of course, all with the units as well. You will show between brackets the units, between brackets the unit. You will do the calculation of the resilience, write the resilience, ductility, percent elongation, for example. You will be determining the toughness of the material, you will show it here, and so on and so forth. So each one of the which you are showing the properties, and this is what we have introduced here now. We will say you are doing what? You are showing the results in terms of the figures, and you have also done what? You summarized everything in this table, which makes every property of the materials very handy as well in order to compare the different results in terms of the numbers and not readings from the figure themselves. So this makes the report, the results part, good. So this is what I'm expecting to see. You need to talk about your results in your own words and use tables and figures to show your results clearly. That's the results part. Then you go to the discussion part. In the discussion part, what are you doing? The cream of the report is basically here. You will use what you have presented in your report, in the results part of the report, the previous one, actually. And then what you will do here, you are going to interpret the results here. What you could do here, for example, in the previous slide that we have shown, in the figures are drawn separately. Table, yes, summarizes that. That's good. You can use that in it. But when they are drawn separately, there is no objective. Clearly, it does not follow the objective that you are having at. You have to have this specific goal of each one of them. For example, in the discussion, as per your objective, because this now the objective will follow what you have written in the objective. Sorry, the discussion here will follow what you have written in the objective. And your objective was, one of the goals is to investigate the effect of carbon content on the mechanical behavior of the steel, isn't it? So you will write this as a subtitle. In the discussion, you will write 1, the effect of the carbon content on the mechanical behavior of plain carbon steel. So you will be discussing that. Now, in order to do that, you will write, for example, here, a discussion. In the discussion, you will say, in order to compare the different mechanical, in order to investigate the effect of the carbon content on the different mechanical properties of the material, comma, the figures 1, figure 2, figure 2 and figure 3 are drawn together as shown in another figure. Now you bring the figures together in one figure here. So figure 1 and 2 and 3, which you have drawn them there, you will plot it in the discussion as a one figure. Because why? In order to ease the comparison and to ease the interpretation of to ease the investigation of seeing the effect of the carbon content on the material behavior. So this is what you would do, for example, the first thing. Then you can use that same also table which you have presented in the results part to show the specific comparisons as well. But in this table there, once you draw them together, so if you have several figures are combined together with that, if you have one figure, let's say, for example, your figure here is number 1, but you will not be able to compare, and if you go to the figure 2, the comparison will be difficult to do. But if you draw it, if you draw 3 steels, for example, in one figure here, if this is the first steel, this is the second steel, and this is the third steel, you draw them in the same figure, you can clearly see what's happening to the ductility and what's happening to the strength, the yield strength of the material, or the ultimate strength of the material, the toughness of the material, the resilience of the material. You can clearly see that. So that is the general trend. The general trend of the material with increasing the carbon content could be seen from drawing the graphs together. And also the detailed numbers, you can always refer to the table which you have drawn in the results part. You could say the way, for example, as increasing, as can be seen from figure مثلا 6, increasing the carbon content causes the increase in the yield strength and the ultimate strength from this value to this value, yield strength from this value to this value, but there is a reduction in ductility from this value to this value, and you can here discuss the matter and use the tables and reference or refer to the figures and the tables. In any value that you will be putting, you should always refer to either the figure and figure number or the table with the table number. You should not just say numbers without reference to the figures and the tables that you are using. This makes your discussion more stronger than just talking sloppily and openly without reference to the other things. Here you should be comparing the results and the information that you have also. So this is one part. Actually, you go to the next to the second objective as well. So this is what I'm saying. You should be comparing the results with the other source of. Once you do that, also, then, for example, you say, how will you show that the effective carbon content on Luder's lines, for example, or the double point or yield point elongation phenomenon? You should show them together on the figure and see how they disappear with increasing the carbon content, and you can discuss then why does it disappear? Why is it that low carbon content? So carbon is one of the major parts which are causing actually low carbon contents. Double yield phenomenon is shown. Higher carbon contents don't show. Why is it that case? You should compare the results to any other source of information as well. Normally, when we get the information from our results, we can always also go and search for other people who have done the result and compare our results to them and show if we are following the general trend in the material science as well. After showing the results, you should basically guide, and this is what we are doing here. You should not, in the discussion, you should not just jump into conclusions. Yani, what you want to say in the discussion is to use the results in the previous section in order to guide the reader to the results that you want to, or to the conclusions that you want to draw. So you cannot just jump. You say, for example, the increasing carbon content leads to the disappearance of the yield point elongation. Well, you should take his hands, you should show him the result, so refer to the figure, for example, the figure number 6, and then clearly indicate that the Luder's line are disappearing with increasing the carbon content. You need to take his hand, you need to make the reader, when he reads, he feels the flow of the writing in a way that as if you are taking his hand and guiding him to the results or to the conclusion, that you want to draw. Okay? Not that you jump into conclusions and say, this makes this, finish. No, you need to take the reader, take his hand, and go smoothly through the conclusion. Time is not finished. Is it? Good. Hello? You said something? مين اللي
تمام.
تحت يشتغل؟
I have a
قول
question.
قول.
يعني دكتور مسوي نفس الكتاب.
ها؟ الو؟ Do you have a bad connection?
في تأثير في الصوت، لحظة بس.
الصوت قاعد يروح وياي، الحين صوتك مسموع.
الإنترنت بس الحبج.
ايه تفضل.
صار اوكي.
والله قاعد
دكتور يعني مسوي نفس الكتاب، نفس ما يقول ان في فيجر دفتر الصفحة، روح خذ البيانات وتعال في الروبوت. لا
لا أنا قاعد أقول إن when you are writing your discussion you should be using the result in يعني you need to be logical in your writing. تستعمل المنطق العقلي مالك. إن you don't jump into conclusions. You don't present something in the results and in the discussion you just say the carbon content is causing the increase in the carbon content is causing the disappearance of the yield point elongation. بس كذي? No. You should not be doing that. Is what I am telling you. You should not be doing. You should take the hands of the Alhamdulillah. You should interpret in the discussion. It is interpretation of the results. You take the results, you tie the parts together and guide the reader into your conclusions. You just don't jump into conclusion. This is what I'm saying. You will use what you have in your results that you have presented here and present it in the discussion in a different way, which can guide, and of course in the discussion part, you interpret, you talk to guide the reader into the conclusions you want to make. You just يعني مو تقول لي اخذ الرقم من هناك وتعال. No, your technical report writing should be professional in a way that, for example, why did we draw here the three figures together? To ease the matter for the reader to be able to visualize, to see how the trend looks like. صح? So this is what you should be doing all through the report writing, and specifically in the discussion part. The discussion is basically interpretation of the results. يعني تستعمل the results, you use the result, you show it in a different way, whatever way, tabulated or figures like this, or different types of figuring as well, to show that you have an increase in this or a decrease in this. After this figure also, you can show specifically, you can show, you use bar charts, for example. Let's say you can use bar charts again here, again here, again here. You can use bar charts, for example, to compare the let's say the ultimate strength, let's say, and the yield strength of the material. You say, for example, what is happening to the yield strength of the material? You have you are comparing the steels. You have steel 1, steel 2, and steel 3. What is their yield strength? What is the ultimate strength? Show for steel 2, show for steel 3 as well. And of course, the activity cannot be shown on the same figure because the number is different type of number. So you can show, for example, you use bar charts in order to show that, and show which shows very clearly the trend in terms of values of the ultimate strength and the yield strength of the material. So you need to be skillful enough, and this is why technical report writing is important. These skills are required for you to be able to analyze and interpret the results that you have to reach to the conclusions that you have. Without that, you're missing a big part of the report writing there. Discussion is the cream that you will be using the results part in order to show in order to lead to the conclusions that you have. But the more beautiful that you do it, the more the link that you give between the conclusion and the results, in terms of interpretation, showing the figures and evidence, because this is the evidence. The evidence that you have are your results. Decorating the results in different ways in order to enhance and ease the flow of the report to lead to the conclusions that you have. Clear? إن شاء الله أكون جاوبت سؤالك يعني على الأقل. I hope I answered your question. No answer there?
إيه تمام دكتور.
And the last part then, after doing the discussion in this way that I have talked about, so this is what I'm saying. After showing the results, you will basically guide the reader in the discussion to the conclusion that you want to reach with evidence by making reference to the drawn tables, drawn figures, or whatever that you have done to the conclusion that you want. Okay? And in the conclusion, that conclusion part is the easiest part that you can do, because it's basically the summary of the discussion that you have done. Here you have 2 or 3 points that you will be saying. The conclusion, you will repeat the important results that you have reached in the discussion part. You should also reproduce, if you wanted to do that, that's also, some people do that, but you don't have to do that, because you can put any redrawn or redrawn figures or tables are done in the discussion part. You end up with what you produce in short actually in the discussion. This is generally to say that you have done that in short form. Of course, after that, you could be using also any references that you have used in order to produce that. It's a book, it's an article in the lab manual, whatever you will be putting there. I'm giving you also a checklist here of how marking is done to the report, for example, what it will be factors which we like. This is a rubric actually to see the important parts that you will have there, and what number of points which are given is not shown, of course. Organization, figures and tables, are they done? Or for example, are they numbered? Figures appear in the appropriate section. This figure belongs to the result and you are showing it in the discussion. No, you are showing it in the appropriate place, using captions and tables for in the tables and figures. So I'm just giving you a checklist. If for each one of them there are conditions that you need to see that you did those, for example. And this is of course not for now, it was for somewhere else. And you could see also the overall marking, how it is done for the report. So this checklist is important, that it summarizes things that you have. Things like if you have a figure and you never used and you never talked about it, it becomes immaterial, obsolete. You don't need that figure in your report. This is the meaning. Any figure that you put or table you have, you need to have reference to it somewhere. شلون تتكلم عنه. إذا ما تكلمت عن التيبل دي ولا قلت عنه شيء ولا استخدمت التيبل دي شيء يسوي عندي ولا التيبل فيجر دي شيء يسوي عندي ولا لازمه معناته أشيله ولا أحطه نفس الشيء. Okay, so you have to have, for example, reference, talk about the things that you are presenting. I'm done with this. Hopefully, you have a short and a brief idea about what you will be requiring in your lab report. Any question? موجودين ولا مشيتوا؟
موجودين دكتور.
كلكم موجودين.
دكتور.
Yes.
بعض البروبرتيز ما نقدر نطلعها بالضبط، مثلا التفنس والستفنس.
شنو البروبرتيز اللي ما تقدر تطلعهم؟ What are the properties that you cannot
مثلا التفنس لازم المساحة تحت المنحنى، نقدر نطلعها؟
لا تطلعها بالتيبل، لا تحكي عنها. أنا ألزمتك في الريبورت، أنا ألزمتك.
ما أدري، كأنه مساحة كتبت نطلعها. لا. ما نطلعها. هني
قاعد أشرح how we write this writing، لكن في اللي طلبته هناك طالع ارجع حق التكست اللي طرشته لكم على التيم. هل طلبت التفنس specifically؟ ما طلب. فخلاص سهل الموضوع على روحك. Look at the other mechanical properties. Okay.
اوكي تمام.
Any other question please?
دكتور
Yes.
الحين هاي اللاب ريبورت كم الويت ماله من 100؟
احنا يعني احنا عندنا في اللاب عندنا الاورال اللي سويناه صح؟
صح؟
وعندنا الريبورت اللي بتسلمونه. عندنا شيء سويناه في اللاب بعد، بنسوي اللاب تيست صغير او كويز، لاب كويز حق الكل، بتسوونه لاب كويز. فit will be divided into these three things. إذا اللاب عليه 20% بيتوزع على بين ثلاثة بالتساوي. إذا عليه 15% يتوزع على التساوي بقى. ماشي؟
تمام دكتور.
Any other question? So you will be having, by the way, a lab quiz. Simple quiz. Not now. After you do your test before the final, I will do a lab quiz for all of you.
ودكتور بالنسبه للكويزز مال اللي هو الثيوري هاي خلصنا منهم لا؟
أنا أبي أحاول أعطيكم بعد الامتحان، عندكم امتحان، لأن it does not make sense إن أعطيكم امتحان كويز على يعني chapter 6 كان عندنا كويز 3 و 4 بيكون عندكم الامتحان اللي بتسوونه، فخلاص يعني I am forcing you to study them 3 و 4 فما بخلي في كويز. لكن 9 و 10 أبي أخلي فيهم 2 quizzes. I hope we have time to do that. I'll give you 2 short quizzes or at least 1 short quiz there combined 9 and 10 together. I might do that أو إن أعطيكم 2 quizzes separate. يعني بنشوف الوقت اللي يكون باقي لنا. Okay.
تمام دكتور.
Any other question? Okay, I will stop the recording at least because so that it does not show also that we have very long